The spaceport on Xyrian was alive with movement. Ships from dozens of star systems landed and took off, their engines humming and lights flashing. Merchants shouted their prices, and travelers hurried through the corridors. Among them walked Kale, a human warrior, his armor gleaming under the artificial sunlight. He was not just any travel, he was the personal protector of Princess Lyra, the young heir of the alien kingdom of Elithra. Kale's eyes scanned the crowd, alert for any threat. He had been assigned this duty only a week ago, but he already felt responsible for the princess's safety. Lyra, tall and graceful, walked beside him, her long silver hair flowing as she moved. Her violet eyes sparkled with curiosity, scanning the strange mix of alien species and human merchants around her. "This place is amazing," Lyra said softly. "I've never seen so many species in one place before." Kale nodded. "Spaceports are like this all over the galaxy. Some are worse." He smiled briefly, though his hand never strayed far from the energy shield strapped to his forearm. Lyra looked at the shield with fascination. "It looks strong. Does it protect you?" Kale flexed his fingers. "It can block almost anything, but it's not invincible. That's why I always stay alert." They moved toward the exit, where their ship waited. The path was crowded, and Kale's senses were on high alert. He had learned quickly that danger could come from anywhere, sometimes from the shadows, sometimes from those pretending to be harmless. Suddenly, a loud explosion rocked the terminal. Shouts filled the air as the crowd panicked. Aliens ran in all directions, some dropping goods, others screaming into communicators. Kale's instincts took over. "Princess, stay close to me," he shouted, pushing her gently behind him. From the shadows, several figures emerged, mercenaries wearing dark armor, their faces hidden by helmets. They carried strange energy weapons that crackled with power. Kale recognized them instantly. Rogue mercenaries known for targeting high-value individuals for ransom. "Step aside, human," one of them barked. "The princess is coming with us." Kale's heart pounded. He had faced dangerous enemies before, but these were organized and ruthless. He raised his energy shield, the blue barrier flickering to life. "You will not touch her," Kale said, his voice calm but firm. The mercenaries laughed. One of them fired a plasma blast directly at Lyra. Kale threw himself forward, slamming the shield into the path of the blast. The energy hit the shield with a deafening crack. Sparks flew, and the force threw Kale backward. Pain shot through his arm as the shield shattered, pieces of it scattering across the floor. Lyra gasped, fear flashing across her face. Kale pushed himself up, blood trickling from a small cut on his forehead, but he smiled reassuringly. "I've got you," he said. Another blast came, faster this time. Kale leaped in front of her again, blocking with his body, not a shield. His armor absorbed much of the impact, but the force threw him against a metal pillar. Pain radiated through his chest, but his resolve did not waver. Lyra took a step back. Then another, as Kale stood between her and the attackers. "Kale, what are you doing?" she whispered, eyes wide. "I told you," he said, catching his breath. "I protect you, no matter what." The mercenaries advanced, their weapons glowing ominously. Kale scanned the environment, looking for anything he could use to his advantage. Spotting a cargo crate near the entrance, he grabbed a metal rod and swung it, knocking one mercenary off balance. Another tried to strike, but Kale sidestepped and shoved him into a wall. Lyra, watching him, felt a mix of fear and awe. She had heard stories of human bravery, but seeing it in person was different. The way he moved, fast and calculated, protecting her without hesitation. It was unlike anything she had experienced in her sheltered life. Kale knew he could not hold them off forever, but he also knew he had to buy time. He spotted a maintenance hatch nearby and pointed, "Through, their princess." Now, without hesitation, Lyra followed him. They slipped through the hatch and into the service tunnels beneath the terminal. The mercenaries shouted behind them, but they could not follow as easily in the narrow corridors. Kale's arm throbbed where the shield had shattered, and his chest ached from the impact of the last blast. Still, he led her through the labyrinth of tunnels, using every bit of his training to stay silent and avoid detection. Are you okay? Lyra asked, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. Cale shook his head slightly, wincing. I'll live. You need to stay quiet and keep moving. They turned a corner, and Cale froze. Ahead, the corridor split into two paths. One path led to an emergency exit, the other to a maintenance room. He made a quick decision and led Lyra toward the exit. As they ran, Cale explained, these mercenaries are skilled. They won't give up easily. We have to be smart, not just fast. Lyra nodded. I trust you. The words struck Cale unexpectedly. It was a simple statement, but it carried weight. She trusted him with her life, and he would not let her down. They reached the exit and emerged into an open service yard. A hover transport waited, its engines humming. Cale pushed Lyra aboard first, then climbed in himself. The vehicle lifted off just as the mercenaries appeared at the edge of the yard. Weapons blazing. Cale maneuvered the transport skillfully, weaving between supply towers and cargo containers. Plasma blasts struck the vehicle, but the armored hull held. Lyra gripped the seat, eyes wide with fear and excitement. You're incredible, she said, breathless. Cale gave a small smile. I just do my job. And sometimes, it's more than just a job. The transport exited the port and entered the sky lanes. Cale finally allowed himself a moment to breathe. He looked at Lyra, who was staring at him with admiration. You were amazing too, he said. You stayed calm even when things got dangerous. Lyra's lips curved into a small smile. I had a good reason to stay calm. You were there. Cale felt a strange warmth in his chest. Protecting her was more than duty, it was personal. As they traveled toward the Elithra Royal Palace, Cale knew this was only the beginning. There would be questions, investigations, and perhaps more attempts on Lyra's life. But he also knew something else. Whatever came next, he would face it without hesitation for her safety. And for her trust. Lyra leaned back in her seat, finally allowing herself a moment to relax. Cale, I don't know how to thank you. Cale shook his head. No thanks needed. Just stay safe. That's all that matters. Outside, the stars streaked past as the transport sped toward their home planet. Cale's mind was already working on new strategies, new ways to ensure no one could ever threaten the princess again. But for now, he allowed himself a brief moment of relief. Lyra was safe, and he had kept his promise. And even though his shield was broken, Cale knew that courage, loyalty, and determination were stronger than any piece of technology. The journey to the palace would be long, challenges awaited them. But Cale felt ready. Whatever the galaxy threw at them next, he would face it head on. Because he had made a vow, human courage was not something he would ever break, and as Lyra watched him from the seat beside her, she realized that perhaps humans were more extraordinary than she had ever imagined. The Elithra Royal Palace was unlike anything Cale had ever seen. Towering crystal spires caught the sunlight and split it into dazzling colors that danced across the palace grounds. Gardens floated above courtyards, and streams of glowing water ran along marble pathways. Cale felt both awe and responsibility. This was the home of Princess Lyra. And now he had to ensure her safety within these walls. The palace medics led Cale to a healing chamber. Advanced Elithran technology hummed softly as healing fields enveloped his body. The shard of his shattered shield lay on a nearby table, dull and useless, but he barely noticed. Pain pulsed through his arm and chest, but the worst had passed. Lyra stayed close, her hand brushing his arm lightly in concern. You don't have to stay near me, Cale said, wincing slightly as the healing energy worked on his wounds. Lyra shook her head. I want to. You saved my life. I need to make sure you're okay too. Cale looked at her. Her violet eyes were steady, but he could sense the fear she had felt during the ambush. That fear had been replaced with admiration and trust. Humans had courage, but it was different when someone saw it up close. As the medics worked, the palace staff began to gather around. Many were curious. Humans were rare in Elithra, and even rarer as protectors of the royal family. Whispers spread through the halls about Cale's bravery and the shattered shield. Some noble aliens looked at him with suspicion, others with quiet respect. Finally, Cale was released from the healing chamber. He was weak, but he could walk. Lyra helped him along, guiding him toward a balcony overlooking the palace gardens. The gardens are beautiful, Cale said, trying to focus on something other than the pain in his chest. Lyra smiled. They are. But the best part is that they're designed to heal the mind too. Many nobles come here to think or meditate. You could try it if you want. Cale shook his head with a small grin. I think I'll stick to healing my wounds the old-fashioned way, rest in time. They walked together in silence for a few moments, watching the floating blossoms drift gently in the air. Cale noticed how natural Lyra moved among the plants, how the light seemed to catch in her hair like silver threads. It was easy to forget, for a moment, that danger had just brushed past them. After a while, Lyra turned to him. Cale, I want to understand more about you. Humans are different from anyone I've met. Your courage, your loyalty, it's extraordinary. Cale shrugged modestly. I just do what I think is right. I've faced danger before. Protecting someone isn't special, it's necessary if you care.
Right.
Lyra studied him closely. That's very human of you, but it's rare here. We have rules, customs, rituals that dictate who can do what, and loyalty is often more about position than heart. Cale's brow furrowed. Then you need more humans around here. We care about people, not just rules. She laughed softly. Perhaps, but Elithra has its ways. You've already challenged them by saving me the way you did. Some will see it as bold, others as reckless. Cale looked at her. I don't care what others think. I care about you. The words hung in the air. Lyra's eyes widened slightly, and for a moment, neither spoke. Cale realized he had said more than he intended, but the honesty felt right. Before Lyra could respond, a soft chime sounded. The royal chamber steward approached. Your Highness, the Queen requests your presence in the audience hall, and she wishes the human protector to attend as well. Lyra nodded, and Cale straightened, his armor glinting in the palace light. They followed the steward through wide hallways filled with Elithran tapestries that depicted the kingdom's history. Cale could not help but notice the artistry, the history of the Elithran people was woven into every wall, every ceiling. When they entered the audience hall, the queen sat upon a throne of translucent crystal. Her presence was commanding, yet there was warmth in her eyes as she looked at Cale. The queen's hair was a deep shade of silver, and her robes shimmered as if reflecting distant starlight. Cale of Earth, she began, her voice calm but strong. I have heard of your deeds. You risked yourself to protect my daughter? You shattered your shield, yet you did not falter. Cale bowed respectfully. I did what I must, your majesty. Princess Lyra's life was in danger. I could not. The queen raised a hand, stopping him. Enough, you need not explain. Actions speak louder than words, and yours have already spoken. It is not often that a human displays such courage and loyalty. For that, you have my attention. Lyra's hand brushed Cale's again, small, but reassuring. Cale felt a surge of pride mixed with nervousness. The queen's attention could change everything, both good and bad. Cale, the queen continued, I have rules to follow, traditions to uphold, but bravery cannot be ignored. You will be allowed to stay at the palace until further notice. You will be treated as an honored guest, and your wounds will be tended with the best Elithran care.
Ow.
Thank you, your majesty. I will not fail. The queen's gaze softened as she looked at her daughter. Lyra, you have a protector who is unlike any other. Take care to honor him as well, for courage deserves respect. Lyra bowed her head slightly. Yes, mother. She looked at Cale, a small smile playing on her lips. See? Even my mother agrees you're extraordinary. Cale felt a strange warmth at her words. He had been trained to protect, to fight, and to endure. But recognition like this from both the princess and her mother was rare. After the audience, Cale and Lyra walked through a private garden. The air was filled with the scent of alien flowers, and glowing butterflies hovered lazily among the blossoms. Tell me more about your world, Lyra said. Humans are fascinating. I want to understand how you think, how you live. Cale chuckled. It's not as glamorous as Elithra. We don't have floating gardens or glowing butterflies. Most of us just try to survive, help each other, and make life better for our families." Lyra tilted her head. "Yet you managed to survive in a galaxy full of dangers, and you saved me without hesitation. There is a nobility in that. Perhaps humanity has much to teach us." Kale felt pride mixed with humility. "Maybe, but I've learned from watching others too. Courage isn't limited to humans. Anyone can be brave if they care enough." Lyra smiled. "I care that you are here, Kale, that you risked yourself for me. That matters more than anything else." Kale stopped walking, taking a deep breath. "I will always be here for you, Princess, no matter what comes." They walked in silence for a few moments, letting the peace of the garden sink in. For Kale, it was a brief respite from the chaos of the spaceport attack. For Lyra, it was a moment of understanding she could trust him, and perhaps even rely on him in ways she had never imagined. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Kale knew that this was just the beginning. He had faced danger and survived, but there would be more tests, more trials, and more challenges to come. And through it all, he would remain by Lyra's side, ready to defend her at any cost. The palace lights turned on, casting a soft glow over the floating gardens. Lyra and Kale continued their walk, talking quietly about their worlds, their hopes, and their fears. The bond between them grew stronger with every step, and in the quiet moments, Kale understood something important. Courage alone was not enough to face the galaxy's challenges. He needed strategy, wisdom, and trust. And he had found all of that in the princess beside him. Tonight, the Elithra Palace was safe. Tomorrow, the universe would present new threats. But Kale was ready. For he had learned that being a protector was not just about fighting, it was about understanding. Learning and standing unwaveringly by the side of those you care for. And Kale had chosen his path. The morning sun reflected off the crystalline towers of the Elithra Palace, casting long, colorful beams across the courtyard. Today was different. Today, Kale would face the trials of honor, an ancient set of tests designed to measure courage, intelligence, and loyalty. The Alien Council insisted that anyone who wished to remain close to the princess, or claim any recognition from the royal family, must prove themselves. Kale stood at the edge of the courtyard, his armor gleaming in the soft light. He had spent the night learning as much as he could about Elithran traditions. Lyra walked beside him, her expression a mixture of excitement and concern. "You don't have to do this, Kale," she said softly. "The Queen already trusts you. I trust you. Why prove yourself to them?" Kale shook his head. "It's not about them. It's about respect. If I'm going to protect you, I need their trust too. And besides, I've never backed down from a challenge." Lyra smiled. "I admire that. Just be careful." The council awaited them at the center of the courtyard. Tall, regal aliens with flowing robes and intricate markings on their skin watched silently. Their eyes were sharp, calculating, assessing Kale from head to toe. At the center, the chief counselor, an elder named Thaler, spoke in a voice that carried authority. "Kale of Earth," Thaler began, "you have demonstrated courage by saving our princess at great personal risk. However, courage alone does not define worthiness. Today you will face the trials of honor. Success will prove your loyalty, intelligence, and ability to act under pressure. Failure will not endanger you, but it may limit your access to our royal circle." Kale bowed respectfully. "I understand, Counselor Thalor. I accept the trials." The first trial was one of strength. Large energy constructs formed around the courtyard, simulating attacks from multiple directions. Kale had to move swiftly, dodge the energy strikes, and disarm mechanisms designed to test agility and endurance. He ducked under beams, leaped over barriers, and even used his broken shield as a makeshift battering ram to block a particularly dangerous pulse. Lyra watched, holding her breath. Kale moved with precision and determination, his human training allowing him to anticipate and react quickly. By the end of the trial, he stood unscathed, breathing hard but proud. The council murmured among themselves, impressed by his performance. The second trial tested strategy and intelligence. Kale was led to a chamber filled with complex holographic maps of the palace and surrounding terrain. He was presented with a simulated threat, a group of invaders attempting to kidnap the princess. His task was to devise a plan to protect her while minimizing risk to the palace and its people. Kale studied the maps carefully. He noticed small details the simulation highlighted, such as hidden corridors and weak points in the defense systems. Using a combination of stealth, timing, and clever placement of defensive measures, he created a plan that trapped the invaders in a controlled area, while keeping the princess and other inhabitants safe. When he presented his strategy, the council was silent for a moment. Then Thaler nodded. "Impressive. You have shown that courage is meaningless without intelligence. A worthy protector must anticipate threats before they arise." Kale exhaled, feeling a mixture of relief and satisfaction. But he knew the final trial would be the hardest. The last trial was one of loyalty under pressure. Kale was placed in a simulated environment where Princess Lyra was again targeted. This time, however, the simulation added a cruel twist. If he chose to defend her directly, he would be injured in the simulation, simulating the loss of his abilities. The council wanted to see if he would prioritize the princess's safety over his own well-being. Kale's mind raced. He understood the test immediately. He had already risked himself in real life. Now the simulation forced him to choose again. Without hesitation, he raised his arms and moved to shield Lyra, even though the energy pulses from the simulation struck him. Sparks flew, alarms rang, and the holographic environment distorted violently. But Kale did not falter. Lyra's voice echoed in the simulation, filled with concern. "Kale? No? You don't have to." But Kale pressed on, intercepting the attacks. "I promised," he said, his voice firm even in the simulation. "I will protect you. Always." The holographic attacks finally ceased. The simulation faded, leaving Kale standing, breathing heavily but unharmed in reality. The council watched in stunned silence. This human had not only faced danger, but had done so with unwavering loyalty. Thaler stepped forward, his eyes glowing faintly with approval. "Kale of Earth, you have surpassed our expectations. You have proven your strength, intelligence, and loyalty. It is rare for one so different to meet the standards of Elithra so completely. You have our respect." Kale bowed deeply. "Thank you, Counselor Thaler." "I am honored." The other council members nodded in agreement. Some even stepped forward to shake Kale's hand, a gesture of acknowledgement and respect. Kale felt a sense of pride, but he reminded himself that his real duty was still protecting Lyra. Lyra approached him, her eyes shining. "You were incredible. You didn't just pass the trials, you amazed them. And you amazed me." Kale chuckled softly, rubbing the back of his neck. "I just did what I had to do. You're worth it." Their moment was interrupted by a messenger arriving hurriedly from the outer walls of the palace. "Princess Lyra, Kale. There is a disturbance at the northern gates. We believe another rogue faction is approaching." Kale's eyes narrowed. "Then we move. Come on." Without waiting, he led Lyra to a side passage, explaining quickly as they ran. "This is why the trials mattered. If I hadn't proven myself, we would have been at a disadvantage. Now, we have the council's support and trust. That can make all the difference." Lyra nodded, gripping his arm for stability as they moved swiftly through the palace corridors. "You think we can stop them?" Kale's jaw tightened. "We don't have to stop them alone. The palace guards, the council, they'll back us, but I'll make sure you're safe first." They emerged near the northern gates, just as a group of heavily armed mercenaries appeared, moving quickly toward the palace. Kale immediately assessed the situation, noting choke points and cover locations. He gave instructions to the Elithran guards, positioning them strategically while staying close to Lyra. When the mercenaries attacked, Kale led the defense, coordinating humans and aliens alike. His quick thinking and experience turned what could have been chaos into an organized counterattack. Lyra watched from behind a protective barrier, Kay, amazed at Kale's ability to combine strategy and action. Every movement, every command was precise. Even the council members who had doubted humans watched with astonishment. The fight was brief but intense. The mercenaries, unprepared for such coordination and clever tactics, were quickly captured. The palace guard secured the area, and the northern gates were safe once more. When the dust settled, Valor approached Kale again, his face unreadable for a moment before a small smile appeared. Once again, Kale of Earth, you have proven that courage and intelligence, combined with loyalty, make a protector unmatched by many. The princess is fortunate to have you. Kale shook his head. I'm just doing my duty. In keeping her safe, that's all that matters. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes shining. Kale, I can't thank you enough. You've risked yourself again, not just in a trial, but in real life. You've saved me more than once. She hesitated, unsure how to put her feelings into words. I trust you completely. Kale placed a hand gently on hers. And I will always earn that trust, princess, no matter what comes next. As they walked back into the palace, the Elithran council observed them with a new understanding. Kale was no ordinary human. He was a force to be reckoned with, a protector whose heart and mind were as strong as any alien warriors. Lyra glanced at Kale, a smile tugging at her lips. Tomorrow, I want to show you something. Something that will help you understand Elithra even more. Kale raised an eyebrow, curious. What is it? You'll see, she said with a mischievous grin. It's a surprise, but I promise, it will be worth it. As the sun set over the palace, Kale stood beside Lyra, watching the floating gardens glow in soft, warm light. He had passed the trials, earned the respect of the council, and protected the princess once again. Yet he knew the galaxy would continue to test them both. But Kale was ready. For courage, loyalty, and strategy were only the beginning of what it meant to be a protector of Elithra's princess. And as Lyra leaned slightly against his shoulder, he realized that this partnership was growing into something deeper, stronger, and more enduring than either of them had expected. The Elithra palace was quiet that morning. The halls filled with soft echoes of distant fountains and the gentle hum of the palace's energy systems. Kale had spent the night recovering from the day's trials. But even as he rested, he could not escape the anticipation of what awaited him. Today, the queen herself would meet him formally. The audience was not just ceremonial, it was a test. A chance for the ruler of Elithra to observe the human who had risked everything for her daughter. Lyra accompanied him as they walked through the sunlit corridors, her hand brushing gently against Kale's arm. Don't be nervous, she said softly, her violet eyes filled with reassurance. My mother already knows the truth about your bravery. She respects that. Kale allowed himself a small smile, though his chest still felt tight. I just hope she sees more than just a fighter. I want her to know I care not only about the princess, but about Elithra as a whole. Lyra squeezed his hand. She will. You've earned that much already. They entered the grand audience chamber. The room was vast, its walls lined with luminous panels that depicted scenes from Elithra's history, great battles, moments of diplomacy, and images of the royal family through generations. At the far end, elevated on a crystalline throne, sat the queen. Her presence was immediate and commanding. Even Kale, who had faced countless dangers, felt a sense of awe. The queen's silver hair framed a face that was both regal and warm. Her eyes, the same violet hue as Lyra's, studied Kale with intensity. A hush fell over the chamber as she spoke. Kale of Earth, she said, her voice calm yet carrying authority. I have observed your actions. You have saved my daughter at great personal risk, and you have demonstrated courage, intelligence, and loyalty. Today I wish to speak to you not as a queen, but as a mother who wishes to understand the heart of the one who protects her child. Kale bowed deeply, as was the custom. Your Majesty, I am honored to stand before you. I only wish to serve the princess and the people of Elithra to the best of my ability. The queen studied him for a long moment, her gaze thoughtful. You are human, she began, and yet, in your actions, you embody the virtues we hold most dear. Bravery alone is not enough. Many have courage but lack wisdom or honor. You have shown all three, Kale nodded, keeping his posture respectful. I understand, Your Majesty. I have learned that strength is meaningless without care, and bravery is hollow without purpose. Oh. The Queen's eyes softened slightly. You speak wisely for one so different from us. Tell me, Kale, what drives you? Why do you risk yourself for someone not of your people? Kale took a steady breath. Because she is worth it. Because life is precious, and because loyalty is not bound by species or law. I protect those who need protection. And I will always protect Princess Lyra. The Queen's lips curved into a faint, approving smile. Your words reflect your heart, and your actions confirm them. It is rare for an outsider to gain my trust, yet you have done so. Rare indeed. Lyra stepped closer, her hand brushing Kale's subtly. Mother, he is. More than anyone could ask for. He saved me, guided me, and never faltered, even when the danger was greatest. The Queen turned her gaze to her daughter. I see that, Lyra, and I trust your judgment. You have a keen eye for character, and your bond with this human is clear. Kale felt a mixture of pride and nervousness. The Queen's recognition was more significant than anything he had faced in battle. Approval from her could change everything, not just his standing at the palace, but his life's path. The Queen continued, her voice deliberate. Kale of Earth, you have proven your courage, loyalty, and intelligence. I hereby grant you honorary citizenship of Elithra. You will be recognized as an official member of this society, and your bond with the princess is honored in my sight. Kale's eyes widened slightly. Your Majesty, I am truly grateful. I will continue to serve with honor, loyalty, and care. The Queen nodded, her gaze piercing yet gentle. There is more. While your status as protector is formalized, the bond you share with Lyra may extend further, should both of you wish it. As Queen, I give my blessing for a union, should your hearts align in the future. Kale felt a rush of emotion he had not anticipated. Gratitude, pride, and hope swelled in his chest. Your Majesty, I will honor this trust. I will always care for Lyra, and I will strive to be worthy of your blessing. Lyra's hand found his, and she squeezed it gently. Kale, I am happy you are here. More than I can say this means a lot. The Queen watched the two of them, her expression unreadable for a moment, then softened again. You have both shown bravery in your own ways. Kale, you faced threats without hesitation. Lyra, you trusted your protector and remained calm in the face of danger. This balance of courage and trust is what Elithra values above all. Kale bowed again. Thank you, Your Majesty. I will not disappoint you or the princess. The Queen gestured, and the council members nodded in agreement. Whispers of approval spread through the chamber, a recognition of Kale's deeds and the Queen's blessing. The human had earned more than respect. He had earned a place in Elithra itself. After the audience, Lyra led Kale to a private garden within the palace. Floating blossoms drifted in the soft air, and glowing streams wound between the crystalline trees. The atmosphere was serene, stark contrast to the tension of the trials and attacks. You've done it, Kale, Lyra said softly. You've earned not only their respect, but something even greater. My mother's blessing is not given lightly. Kale exhaled, leaning against a marble railing. It feels surreal. I never imagined I could be accepted like this. Not here, not with aliens, and certainly not by a queen. Lyra smiled. You deserve it. You risked your life for me. That is worth more than anything else. Kale looked at her, his heart steady. I don't do it for recognition. I do it because it's right. But having this trust, it makes me want to do even more, to be better. Lyra's eyes softened. And you are. You've already shown who you are, and it's extraordinary. For a moment, they simply watched the floating gardens, letting the peace of the palace wash over them. Kale felt a deep sense of belonging. For the first time, he realized that his courage and loyalty were recognized not just by his own people, but by an entire alien civilization. Kale, Lyra said quietly, breaking the silence. "Tomorrow, I want to show you something important. Something that will help you understand Elithra even more, and perhaps understand me too." Cale raised an eyebrow, curious. "What is it?" Lyra only smiled mysteriously. "It's a surprise, but I promise, it will be worth it." Cale nodded, feeling a strange mix of excitement and calm. With the Queen's blessing, the Council's respect, and Lyra's trust, he felt ready for anything. Yet he knew the universe was full of challenges. There would be more threats, more trials, and more tests of courage and loyalty. But for now, he allowed himself to appreciate this moment, peaceful, proud, and promising as the sun dipped behind the palace spires. Casting long shadows across the gardens, Cale knew something had shifted. He was no longer just a human warrior. He was an honored protector, a citizen of Elithra, and someone who had the trust of a princess and her queen. And for the first time in his life, Cale felt that maybe, just maybe, his place in the galaxy was not defined by where he came from, but by what he chose to do, the courage he showed, and the bonds he nurtured. He turned to Lyra, who looked at him with a quiet smile. "Whatever tomorrow brings," he said, "we face it together." Lyra nodded. "Together," she agreed, and in that moment, beneath the glowing streams and floating blossoms of Elithra, Cale realized that the real journey, the one of trust, loyalty, and perhaps even love, was only just beginning. The Elithra Palace had never looked more magnificent. Floating lanterns glimmered like tiny stars above the main courtyard, and streams of glowing water reflected the soft light across the crystal spires. Flowers of every imaginable color floated gently in the air, their scents blending into a delicate perfume that drifted through the halls. Today was the day of celebration, Kyle and Princess Lyra's wedding. Cale stood at the entrance to the courtyard, wearing ceremonial armor polished to a brilliant shine. Though the metal gleamed, it did little to hide his nerves. This was no ordinary battle. It was a challenge of heart and honor. He had fought mercenaries, faced the trials of the council, and earned the Queen's blessing, but this was something else entirely. Lyra appeared from the palace, her gown a flowing creation of Elithran craftsmanship. Light shimmered in every fold, making her look as if she were glowing from within. Her hair sparkled like silver threads in the sunlight, and her violet eyes held both excitement and quiet anticipation. When she saw Cale, her lips curved into a smile that made every worry in his chest disappear. "You look incredible," she whispered. Cale's chest tightened. "So do you." Took a deep breath, steadying himself. "Are you ready?" Lyra nodded. "I am. With you, I am ready for anything." The crowd gathered, humans and Elithrans alike, dignitaries, nobles, and common citizens. The air was filled with a mixture of awe, respect, and joy. Many had doubted a human could earn a place in Elithra's royal circle, but Cale's deeds had proven them wrong. He had passed trials, defended the princess, and earned the trust of the Queen. Today, he would stand beside her, not as a protector, but as her chosen partner. The ceremony began. Elithran music filled the air, a harmonious blend of instruments that seemed to resonate with the stars themselves. The Queen took her place at the front of the courtyard. Her gaze steady on Cale and Lyra, her presence was both regal and warm, a reminder of the approval that had set this day in motion. Cale approached Lyra, his steps confident despite the flutter of nerves in his stomach. When he reached her, he took her hands in his. Feeling the warmth and softness that contrasted with the hardness of his armor, "Lyra," he said, his voice steady, "I promise to protect you, to honor you, and to stand by your side in every challenge we face. Today and always." Lyra's eyes shimmered with emotion. "Cale, I trust you with my life, my heart, and my world. I choose you, now and forever." The Queen raised her hands, and a hush fell over the crowd. "By the power vested in me as ruler of Elithra, and with the blessing of our people, I unite Cale of Earth and Princess Lyra in marriage. May their courage, loyalty, and love guide them always." The ceremony was simple, yet grand. Filled with the elegance of Elithran tradition and the heartfelt sincerity of two beings from different worlds choosing each other. As vows were exchanged, the crowd erupted in applause, celebrating not only the union but the harmony between humans and Elithrans. Just as the ceremony reached its peak, a distant alarm echoed through the palace. Cale stiffened immediately. "Stay here," he said, releasing Lyra's hands. "I need to check this." Lyra's eyes widened. "Cale, trust me," he said firmly. His body had faced danger countless times before. He knew how to act quickly. Cale sprinted toward the source of the alarm, his mind analyzing the situation even as his legs carried him forward. At the northern gate, a small group of rogue mercenaries had infiltrated the palace grounds, clearly attempting to disrupt the celebration. Cale's instincts kicked in. He assessed the situation. The courtyard was filled with guests, and any mistake could put innocent lives at risk. He signaled the Elithran guards with swift gestures, organizing them into defensive positions. The mercenaries, unaware that Cale was leading the defense, rushed forward. But Cale had already anticipated their moves. He used the terrain, the floating platforms, and the reflective surfaces of the palace to his advantage. In precise, fluid motions, he intercepted the intruders, disarming them and neutralizing their attacks without causing harm to the guests. Lyra, watching from a safe distance, felt a mix of fear and awe. Cale moved with the confidence of someone who had faced countless dangers, but with a care that showed he valued every life around him. The palace guards followed his lead, and soon, the intruders were captured and restrained. Cale took a deep breath, the tension finally easing from his shoulders. He turned back to the ceremony, relieved to see Lyra still smiling, her trust in him unwavering. "You never stop being amazing," she said softly when he returned. Cale chuckled, brushing a strand of hair from his face. "I told you, I'm always ready for whatever comes next. Especially for you." The rest of the ceremony continued without interruption. Elithran blessings were spoken, and the couple exchanged rings made of crystalline metals infused with glowing energy. The rings symbolized unity, not only between them, but also between their worlds. As the final blessing was pronounced, the crowd erupted in celebration. Humans and Elithrans alike cheered, waving banners and releasing floating lanterns into the sky. Cale and Lyra stood together, holding hands, and watched the lanterns drift upward, illuminating the courtyard like stars descending to meet them. After the ceremony, the couple walked through the palace gardens. The floating blossoms and glowing streams reflected the happiness in their hearts. Guests mingled, laughter and music filling the air. Cale felt a sense of belonging he had never known before. He was not just a protector or a human among aliens. He was part of something larger, a bridge between worlds. Lyra leaned against his shoulder, her head resting lightly. "It's perfect," she whispered. "I never imagined a day like this." Cale smiled, his arm wrapped gently around her. "Neither did I, but we made it happen, together." As night fell, the palace lights glowed brighter, reflecting off the crystal spires and illuminating the sky with soft, radiant colors. Cale and Lyra stood on a balcony, looking out over the city. The stars twinkled above, reminding them of the vast galaxy that stretched beyond Elithra. Cale spoke softly, his voice filled with quiet determination. "Lyra, whatever comes next, challenges, dangers, or unknowns, we face them together. I've learned that courage is stronger when shared, and loyalty is stronger when it protects those we love." Lyra smiled, her eyes shimmering. "And I've learned that trust is the strongest bond of all. I know you will always be there for me, and I will always be there for you." They stood in silence for a moment, letting the peace of the palace and the warmth of their bond settle around them. Cale realized that this was more than a victory over danger or a successful trial. It was the beginning of a life built on mutual respect, loyalty, and love, a life where humans and Elithrans could stand together as equals. Later, as the celebrations continued, the queen approached them, her expression proud. "Cale, Lyra, you have both honored our traditions and our hearts. May your union inspire courage and unity for all Elithra and beyond." Kale bowed respectfully. "Thank you, Your Majesty. I will always strive to honor that trust." Lyra squeezed his hand, smiling. "And I will always stand with you." The evening ended with a grand feast, music, and dancing. Kale found himself surrounded by new friends, humans and aliens alike, all celebrating the extraordinary courage and loyalty that had brought them together. But through all the joy, his focus remained on Lyra. She was his partner, his equal, and the one he had sworn to protect and cherish as the night drew to a close. Kale and Lyra returned to their private chambers. The palace was quiet, the festivities distant but still echoing with joy. They stood together, looking out at the stars that stretched endlessly beyond Elethra. Kale spoke softly. "This is just the beginning. We've faced dangers, proven ourselves, and earned the trust of an entire kingdom. But the galaxy is wide, and there are still challenges ahead." Lyra leaned close, resting her head against his shoulder. "Then we face them together, Kale. Always together." Kale smiled, feeling a profound sense of peace. For the first time, he understood that being a protector was not just about fighting battles or facing danger, was about building trust, showing loyalty, and standing by those you care for, no matter the odds. And as the stars twinkled above, Kale knew that he had found his place in the galaxy not just as a warrior, but as a partner, a citizen, and a hero whose courage and heart had bridged worlds. The future awaited, full of unknowns, but Kale no longer faced it alone. With Lyra by his side and the blessing of her mother and her people, he was ready for anything. Together, they would face the galaxy, protect their worlds, and build a life defined by courage, loyalty, and love. And so, beneath the glowing lights of Elethra, a human and an alien princess began their new life, bound not by species, but by heart, honor, and an unbreakable bond that promised a future brighter than any star.